My name is Clara Wells. I am 32 years old. And last Saturday at my sister Megan's rehearsal dinner, my mother looked around a table of 40 people and said, "Where does she get this gift? It is just stunning. Not everyone in this family has it." She was talking about the speech Megan had just read aloud. The speech that moved half the table to tears. The speech my mother would call the most beautiful thing she had ever heard at a dinner table. What my mother did not know, what nobody at that table knew, is that I wrote every single word of it. Before I take you any further, please hit like and subscribe if you are new to her silence. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love knowing who is out there with me. Now, let me take you back to where this began. I grew up in a house where talent had an address. It lived in Megan's bedroom, surrounded by oil paints and stretched canvases and blue ribbons from the regional art fair. Megan was the creative one. Teachers said so. Neighbors said so. Our mother, Diane Wells, said so loudest and most often. I was the other daughter, the one who read too much, stayed up too late, filled notebooks that nobody asked to see. In the 3rd grade, I wrote a story for the school literary journal. My teacher called it the best submission she had received in 11 years. I brought it home. My mother put it on the refrigerator for 1 week. Then she took it down to make room for Megan's watercolor of our backyard. That was the last piece of my writing I ever showed her. I do not say this to build a case. I say it so you understand the math. In our house, creativity was measured in things you could see. Paintings on walls. Colors on canvas. My work was invisible by nature. Words on a page. Turned in, forgotten. My mother was not cruel. She just could not see what was directly in front of her. At 18, I earned a full writing scholarship to the state university. I did not tell my parents the full amount. I said I had partial funding. They said wonderful, and moved on. I graduated with a degree in English, moved to a shared apartment in the city, and got a job writing content for a small agency. I learned the craft. I built a reputation slowly and carefully. By 25, I had moved into ghostwriting. Books, memoirs, speeches, personal essays. Work where my name never appears. The client gives me their story. I find its shape. I give it back in words that feel entirely like their own. It is the most invisible work I have ever done. It is also the most honest. I never explained any of this to my family. At Christmas, my mother told relatives I wrote things on the internet. She meant it without malice. She simply did not know the difference between a social media post and a published memoir. I stopped correcting her years ago. I passed the potatoes and went home Sunday evening to the manuscript on my desk. By 28, I was earning more per project than any salary I had imagined in my 20s. The Mitchell family memoir was mine. So was the Prescott story, 3 generations of women who ran a fishing business on the Oregon coast. The Prescott book made a significant list in January. My name was not on the cover. It never is. That is the job. That is also, I have come to understand, a particular kind of power. You can build a great deal in the quiet when no one is watching. Have you ever done work that no one could see? Work that mattered, that took everything you had and still nobody knew it was yours? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Stay with me because this story makes a turn I did not see coming either. 6 months before Megan's wedding, I received a brief through the platform I use to find clients. The platform keeps identities private during the matching stage. I see the brief, the budget, the timeline. I do not see a name. The brief read, wedding speech, 5 minutes, emotional with humor in the first minute. The story is about a woman who was afraid of stillness until she met the one person who made stillness feel like home. Budget, $2,500. Timeline, 3 weeks. I took the brief. It was a good story. Someone had lived something real and needed the right words for it. I wrote the speech in 4 drafts. Submitted it on a Tuesday. Received a 5-star review and a short note. I cried reading this. Thank you. I moved on to the next project and did not think about it again. Last Saturday, at the rehearsal dinner, I sat at a long table in a restaurant on Birch Street. 40 people, white linens, candles. Megan stood and held the paper with both hands the way she always does when she is nervous. She read. It was exactly as I had written it. The small joke in the opening minute landed cleanly. By the third paragraph, the table had gone quiet in that specific way that means people have stopped thinking about their own lives. By the final line, my aunt was pressing a napkin to the corner of her eye. My mother reached across and covered Megan's hand with hers. She said, "Where does she get this?" Then she looked around the table. Not everyone in this family is given this kind of gift. Megan has always had it. Her eyes passed over me the way eyes pass over furniture. I held my water glass with both hands and said nothing. Then the wedding planner stepped to Megan's side and mentioned quietly that her contract included a credit clause. She was encouraged to acknowledge the writer. Megan pulled up the platform on her phone. She studied the screen for a moment. Then she said into the room, "I had some help with this. My writer's name is..." She turned the phone slightly and read, "C. Wells." The name sat in the air for a moment before it traveled. My mother said it first. "That is your name, Clara." I set my water glass down. I looked at Megan. Her expression was not embarrassment. It was something quieter. She said, "That was you?" "Yes." She submitted the brief on a Tuesday in November. She wanted the opening to feel light and then shift. She asked for the metaphor about stillness and the callback in the final line. That was the revision in round 2. Megan stared at me. The table was completely still. I looked at my mother. "I have been writing for 6 years, Mom. Books and memoirs and speeches for people who needed their story told in words they could not find on their own. The Prescott book was mine." I paused. "The one that made the list in January." Her mouth opened. "I know you didn't know," I said. "You thought I wrote things on the internet. I never corrected you. That is on me as much as anyone." The silence at that table lasted 4 seconds. I counted. After dinner, Megan found me near the door. She was still holding the paper. She said she had not known it was me. I told her I knew that. She said it was the most beautiful speech she had ever read and that she had cried 3 times revising it. I told her that was because she had given me a real story to work with. She laughed. Then she hugged me properly. The kind we had not shared since we were small. At the wedding 2 days later, Megan stood before 120 guests and said, "I want to thank my sister Clara, the most talented writer I know, who found the words for the story I did not know how to tell." My mother was sitting in the second row. She did not look at me when Megan said it. But after the ceremony, she found me near the garden door. She put her hand on my arm and said, "I should have asked more questions." I told her it was all right, because it was. I had not stayed quiet for 6 years waiting for her to notice. I had stayed quiet because the work was real whether she saw it or not. That is what her silence means to me. The most powerful thing you can build is the thing you build before anyone is watching. By the time they look, it is already finished. If someone has ever overlooked the work you built in the quiet, I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. And if this story reminded you that your gifts are real even when they go unseen, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. Subscribe if you haven't yet. The next story is linked right below.